truth in a world of lies. You are listening to the John H. Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age, and I am your host, John Age. I'll be taking you into the dark side of the AM this evening. Thanks for joining us so much. Thanks for everything. Check out anomicage.com if you've not already done so. It looks a heck of a lot like this. PayPal.me/AnomicAge, Patreon.com/AnomicAge as well. Those are definitely the best ways you can support this show. Also got the Cash App up there, the Buy Me a Cup of Coffee link. We got the Lightning link for Satoshis. As always, free iPhone app, free Android app, subscribe by email link, and so much more. All that can be found right there at anomicage.com. So please consider becoming a patron, becoming a member. Shout out to all you people across the pond and in other locales on the globe that are listening to the Anomic Age. I always find it kind of fun and cool to just kind of peek at who's actually listening and downloading and watching all over the place. So it's really neat. And I thank you. So thanks for doing that. And underscore this again. Please become a patron. Like all those likes, subscribe to the subscriptions. If you can do no more, you can do that. So much to get into in this edition of the show. So, the obvious stuff for this evening. We're looking at information breakdown segment entitled The Empire of Lies. Empire of Lies. We're at 507 information breakdown segment. I had to double look on that one. I can't believe it's been this minute. But Empire of Lies is what we are built upon. And it's exactly what we're going to get into this evening on the show, is how we got into this handbasket of lies, why we keep buying into the horse fluff, and is there any way to get out of it? In my humble opinion, I don't think so. But you never know. You can hope, I suppose. You can do that old thing, hoping in one hand and doing something else in the other and seeing which one fills up first. I guess that's all we can do at this point in the game, is hope. So we got we'll cover some news first, kind of before we go deep into the pool, and then we'll delve into the deep end of the pool. So some of the obvious fluff here, there, and everywhere is just the usual buffet of buffoonery, the amalgamation of idiots, the cacophony of poppycock. I'll clean it up a little bit for him. We got Dan Bongino, former FBI director. He went from a podcast host, no shame in that game, to FBI director. I'd say a whole bleep of a lot of shame in that game. Hoover? Oh, man, I don't know. Anyway, FBI director, and then he's back to the podcast guy. But he wants to make sure you know just what's up. He wants to make sure you know, even though he couldn't do butt kiss while he was apparently FBI director, and neither could Kash Patel, neither could Bondi, neither could Trump. Nobody could seemingly find their proverbial backsides with both hands. Not then, but now. Now, however, he's saying, once again, Dan Bongino declares war on black pillars. Oh, I'm so scared. Grifters. Okay, well, that's most of the podcasts right there. And people trying to hijack MAGA. Oh, my. Oh, dearie me. Say it ain't so, Danny boy. Say it ain't so. So, I mean, I feel you. The grifters, that would be pretty much everybody in the sphere of podcasting almost right about now. Because there's so many people out there that are just grifting. I mean, heavens to Murgatroyd. We already did a whole show called The Control Bunch. A little spoofy spoof on the Brady Bunch where I just went through and ran through, what was it, 3, 6, 9, 9 people, and 10 if you count Trump. 10 people that are just straight BSing everybody. Grifters. These would be the paid few, I guess, that can post anything on any social media and not get hit with a spam and not get hit with any sort of other shadow banning, not get hit with anything, I guess. But they'll still come out there and say, oh, we've had all our bank accounts frozen and taken, and we're just not even able to operate, and we're about to go bankrupt at any day now, and we're going to go bankrupt any day now, and we're going to go bankrupt any day now. Like, all this is supposedly true. Okay, well, if that's all true, then how are you still pulling through? Would be my question to you. Kind of strange. Kind of strange. So you got the obvious paid provocateurs out there. And then you got everybody else. So Danny Boy is going back into the paid provocateurs realm, I guess. Maybe it was more lucrative than the FBI gig. I don't know. But now he's going after the black-pilled people. Oh, my. And the people that are trying to hijack MAGA? You mean Israel? Is that what, Dan? Is that what you're talking about, Dan? You mean Israel? He's saying this as if the things he's mentioning are somehow hard to figure out. I mean, that's the kind of idiocy that we've got in these various positions of power. It's like the proverbial, or should I say perpetual, who's on first. We don't know who these grifters are. Well, I sure as believe to. I gave you 9 of them, 10 if you count DJ 10. We don't know who's trying to hijack MAGA. Of course we do. Anybody with a brain knows that. Countless shows have covered that, including mine. Miriam Adelson, ring a bell? I mean, it's just one of them, but I mean, seems pretty obvious to me. So, and then we've got the quote-unquote black pillars. They're the people not falling for the binary opposition. They're the people not falling for, my team's winning. Oh, my team's going to win. Oh, I'm going to paint myself blue or red and put a donkey shirt on. They're the people not playing the stupid game anymore. That'd be the people that are black-pilled. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Wait a minute. I mean, some people haven't seen this, so you should all enjoy it and witness it. I've turned the volume off, so I won't get hit with any sort of strikes on the YouTube anymore. This is funny as bleep. I got another strike on YouTube, or they didn't call it a strike because no one can see my account, I don't think. But I got something else on YouTube, which was fairly comical, claiming some sort of copyright violation, which is just hilarious because I have no music on that platform nor on my show in its entirety that isn't mine. Produced, made, played, and everything else by me. The only thing I have ever played that was other people's music was this little bit of Kung Fu Fighter when I showed this damn Bongino clip, and I immediately cut it off. So here it is again for you knuckleheads, you bottom feeder, carpet bagging, floor flushing pieces of pond scum on social media that seek to shorten my reach. Enjoy. This is Dan Bongino, folks. This is Dan Bongino doing the Barney Fife. This is Danny Boy. This is that guy. This is the scary guy, former FBI director. Was he like former Secret Service? Ooh, all kinds of high military honors and whatever. This is that guy, folks. This is Dan Bongino doing Barney Fife. This is Dan Bongino saying he's coming after you if you are a black-pilled person that's in any way anti-Trump, trying to hijack the regime. And it makes me giggle inside that you've still got people out there, and it's funnier. It's even funnier because you got people that criticize the Q nonsense from the jump, rightfully so, because that's a horse pucky. Like a horse pucky, yeah. sandwich, and I ain't taking a bite, but whatever. You got people that were still criticizing that bull jive now coming out and saying, well, maybe this Maduro thing is really just a plan to get these deep state operatives. Because somehow, like, our government doesn't have the information. We don't know where the bodies are buried, but somehow a Central American dictator does, or excuse me, South American. South American dictator knows everything, and he's going to pull the mask off, and we just had to go down there and kill 80 people and waste a couple hours and kidnap this boob and bring him to America and charge him for having a machine gun. How's that work again? You go to another country and kidnap somebody, you're going to charge them with American laws? That's the dumbest mess I've ever seen. It'd be like Canada coming and kidnapping this a random person in America and taking them back over the border and be like, hey, we got this guy. We're going to charge him with Canadian laws. Idiots. 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 But to my point, there's still people buying into the bull jive that's saying, oh, no, this is really some crazy operation by Trump, man. And it's people that once criticized the Q-tards. It's like what's good for the goose is somehow not good for the gander when it serves your own political ends so you can prop up the regime of Chairman Trump. It's just so bizarre. So bizarre, folks. But once you really start uncovering the empire of lies, it's not really that bizarre. It's just kind of more prima facie. It's just kind of more, hey, of course, it's what you think it is, isn't it? Do you not think it's bull jive? I'm just trying to figure this out for people. But wait, there's more, because we got to show you this one. I don't know what in the devil's going on in the courtrooms. When I was a kid, you would see some sort of courtroom drawings, but they didn't look this jacked up. What the heck is going on? I mean, I know some people like to talk about reptilians. Do we really have real reptilians in the courtroom and they're just taking the mask off at this point in the game? Check this girl out. I'm assuming it's a girl. I may have misgendered her. Check out this creature over here on the right. Long necking. Just like, what the giraffe neck blibbity blob is going on over here? Maybe she's one of them freaky Anunnaki cats. I don't know. You got long neck next to long face. And then the whole thing is punctuated by the obvious. The same old obvious hand signs I've been showing you for a long time. That's what we got going on in the courtroom. So, I don't know if maybe his hands were cuffed so he couldn't do the Illuminati hand in the pocket thing. I guess he wasn't wearing a blazer nor a suit, so he couldn't really properly show the judge that he was a Masonic member. But maybe he couldn't do the real Masonic hand in the lapel thing. So he just did the obvious. I like Jay-Z. I like Jay-Z. Everybody's doing this. I can't imagine why. So hysterical. Just downright comical. So we got that going on. And there's so much more. It's hard to just do a short 1 hour show. And I could drag this thing out for like 3 hours. But, you know, the American people have the attention span and the memory of a goldfish. So that's probably beyond the pale. I mean, you start going past 30 seconds and people just start banging their head into the walls and seizing up. The answer is non sequitur. Does not compute. Too much information. ChatGPT didn't tell me what to say. Anyway, so you got that bull jive. And you had people, let me roll through some of the other stupid news, and then we'll get into stuff that matters. Because I just covered this just for the lightweights, really, because it's kind of just too obvious to me. But some of the lightweight stuff we got to get into. I saw some moron posting this, and I guess they were defending Trump kidnapping, regime changing, and all this bull horse feces. because they were trying to say, oh, you just don't know. Edmund Gonzalez is the real president of Venezuela. People just don't know. They're saying that Trump kidnapped Maduro. Okay. Let me break it down for you. It's kind of like that whole possession is 9/10 of the law thing, okay? It's the same thing that we saw during, I guess, the second attempted Trump election when the election was clearly stolen. I mean, here's the deal. Like him, don't like him, I don't really give a fluff. But I will say, President Trump won his second term. It should have been a back-to-back thing, but it was a clearly stolen election, okay? That's self-evident. But again, possession is 9/10 of the law. So whether or not the election was stolen or not, he didn't do butt kiss about it to bring in the military, to not do that peaceful exchange of power, to defy the laws of tradition, so to speak. Shout out Primus. He didn't do anything to preserve his second term there. He just went quietly into the night and griped and moaned about it for 4 years and whatever. But at the end of the day, possession, 9/10 of the law, Chairman Biden stepped in and took over the reins. I mean, if you believe that's really Biden, and if you believe that any president is actually controlling anything more than maybe his bowel movements, that's about it. So that's the deal, smart guy. Or in this case, this was a smart lady, if she's a lady. I'm so sick of this bull job, too. No matter where you are on social media or on the internet, it's like this buffet of crazy, this inundation, this deluge of people that are really chicks that are guys and guys that are chicks and the whole 9 yards. And it goes back for centuries. Every president was actually married to a man. Every celebrity in Hollywood that you thought was a female is actually a man. And I'm just like, I'm beyond all of the fray, okay? I just don't give a flip anymore. I don't. I am so thankful to God that I am married to a female, 100%. There was no AI involved. There was no catfishing. There was no trickeration. It was just, I'm so thankful that I don't have to live in this eternal hell pit that I guess is the people that are single right now, or the people that are like gorking out to these people online and lusting after all these men as women or what have you. Like, I'm so glad that I'm not in this pond. Like, I'm over here like a couple states over in a totally different body of water. I don't want anything to do with this bullshit. So I don't worship the cult of celebrity. I'm not like, ooh, you over these allegedly attractive females that could be males. I just don't care. So that's another thing I've completely had it with, like to the gills. I'm just done with all of it. And the other thing I'm so sick of is, ooh, this guy's not really dead. He's really this other celebrity. Oh, look, it's all a mask. It's all a charade. It's all a charade. Okay, great. I don't care about that either. It's just, so much of this is just downright hilarious. But it all really plays into the empire of lies. That's really what it all plays into, man. And it goes back to some of those basic tenets that I've talked about on the show so often. I've been very close to this world for a long time. I have seen behind that curtain, if you will. That's why I came out, and I think my first few months of the show, I came up with this K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization. That's what this is. That's what this all is. That's what every stinking bit of it is. Can we put this on the big screen? Empire of lies. That's exactly what this whole bunch of horse pucky actually is. It's an empire of lies. Every stinking bit of it. And the more you look into history, the more you look into education, and the more you really look into just about anything that you've been taught, you've been told, this is it, man. And then you realize this ain't it at all, man. This is a bunch of horse feces. And it's very... You can draw a lot of parallels between the alleged waking up process, not the woke, but the waking up to the empire of lies. You can draw a lot of parallels between that, and I would suggest, I don't know, I liken it to like kids figuring out, like, oh yeah, like the tooth fairy's bull butter. Easter Bunny, bull butter. Santa Claus, bull butter. So you begin at an early age to realize that most of the bull butter lies that you've been told as a child are just horse feces. And I liken that and draw a lot of parallels between that and what I hope people are doing as adult people. That you're figuring out, everything that you've been told is a bunch of horse feces. It's lies. It's creepy. It's balderdash. It's dung. It's excrement. That's really what's going on. And let's pull this one up on the screen, because this one actually tells you a lot. The true view of this whole thing. And I'm sure you've all probably seen similar imagery that's, again, likening the prison system, the prison industrial complex, to the indoctrination complex, the K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization. And I used to joke about this as a kid all the time. I just didn't realize how right I was. I mean, growing up on an island and going to school there on that island, I would always liken it, probably rightfully so, to Alcatraz. You know, you're a young kid, you don't have a lot of breadth nor depth, and you don't have a lot of knowledge, but you, at least Gen Xers knew about Alcatraz. I mean, there was unsolved mystery specials on Alcatraz. There was the movie with Clint Eastwood on the escape from Alcatraz. So there was a lot of Alcatraz talk, and I guess if you were old enough, older than myself anyway, you would have remembered the Red Power movement in Alcatraz. So people knew Alcatraz. Being on an island, growing up there, going to school there, I was like, I'm leaving Alcatraz. I'm leaving grammar or elementary school. Now I'm going to a bigger prison up the road, across the bridge, That'd be middle school. Then I'm going to the big house, going to high school. And you see these same parallels, folks. It's the same old song. Authoritarian structure, or authoritarianism, John. That's what it's about, man. Don't question what you've been told. Teacher, leave those kids alone. All that. I don't even like that, Pink Floyd. But dress code. They didn't have a dress code when I was a kid, for heaven's sakes. This was Gen X days, folks. There was people wearing Joe Camel shirts. There was people wearing Coors Light shirts. I mean, this was not odd. This was commonplace, for heaven's sakes. Emphasis on silence and order. I don't think that's really practiced anymore, but allegedly at once upon a time, there was an emphasis on silence and order. I remember I always found this completely asinine as a kid. You'd get put in silent lunch. Ooh, silent lunch. So not only can you not talk, for the 7.5 hours you're in this indoctrination prison, but the 30 minutes you get to go to commissary, you can't talk if you're on silent lunch. Anybody remember this one? Silent ball? Yeah, if it was raining or something outside and you were stuck inside, again, you couldn't go outside on the yard for your 30 minutes of yard exercise. You had to stay inside. And then again, you had to practice silence. Con silent ball. Pelota silencio. You know what else we got? Negative reinforcement. I guess you had a little bit of positive reinforcement. If you did well in spelling, you used to have a little chart. You get a little sticker on there. But it was a lot of negative reinforcement, really. It was a lot of scolding and shunning for not following the rules. Walking in line, you better get in line, kids. You got to get in that line so we can walk to the bathroom. You've got to get permission to go potty. You want to go to the water fountain, you better get permission, because otherwise you just got to go in a line. You ready to line up and go outside? You ready to line up and go to commissary? You ready to line up and go home, get on your bus? What else? Loss of individual autonomy. Nobody wants individuals in school. They want sheep, baby. Abridged freedoms. I don't even know if you got any kind of freedoms at school that I know of. But abridged, yeah, that's pretty good. No input on decision making. Of course not. If you do, it's sort of like that psychological jujitsu or judo move where it's like, well, you can choose to get hit in the head with a brick or get hit in the head with a bat. You still got to get hit in the head. So the illusion of choice runs rampant. Set times enforced for walking, eating, etc. I think we already covered that. Yeah, that's all in place and commonplace in the K through 12 indoctrination. College, university, weaponization. That's really what's going on, folks. What else we got? We got so much to get into. We got to get into just how this whole thing came to be. So we really had a normal education system, a.k.a. people had individual freedoms in the education system. We're talking like Little House on the Prairie days, if you want me to put this in some sort of context that everyone can digest properly. So around the early to mid 1800s, we had old Horace Mann. So early to middle 1800s. Old Horace died in 1859, so kind of more on the early mid side. Horace Mann came into picture. Old Horace Mann. He was a Whig. I ain't going to hold that against him. He was also from Massachusetts, known by King of the Hill fans as Taxachusetts. That's right. Shout out to Dale Gribble. Shout out to... oh, my goodness. What's Dale's alias? Oh, man, I'm blanking on this name. Dale Gribble's alias. I don't know. Somebody shoot me Dale Gribble's. Rusty Shackelford. Thank you. Thank you, Brain. Shout out to Rusty Shackelford. Horace Mann was imbued with the power to go study education and formulate how we could properly put Americans into an education system, a national education system, controlled by the Fed's education system. Just like the pimps and the hoes, the feds are going to give you some little tokens if you're a good pimp. If you're a good hoe. Don't be mistaken and know where the power lies and who pulls the strings. So saith the rancid. Because who controls and pulls those strings and where the power does indeed lie? If you want to look locally, it's in the feds. If you want to look globally, you better look into some of those big 7 elite families. I think we know who they are. We ain't covering them today if you don't. So who controls the power and who pulls the strings? So saith the rancid. That's going to be the pimps at the Fed level, controlling the hoes at the state and local level. So don't think you got any power in the system. You're just a hoe. So Horace Mann came in and said, we're going to nationalize this education system, and I'm going to Prussia to figure this whole thing out. So Horace runs across the pond, and he goes to Prussia, a.k.a. Little Germany. And he figures out this Prussian model of education. And he brings it back to Los Estados Unidos. And he's the guy who brought us into this nightmarish hellscape of what we're seeing today. So what do we got? Some of the obvious ones here. Compulsory attendance? Yeah, it's compulsory, folks. They will come try to arrest you or your padre if you ain't in their system. So we've seen this early on with the Indians, a.k.a. Native Americans, a.k.a. indigenous people, or whatever you want to be called now. So this was part of the brainwashing from the jump. So from the jump, as the colonizers, as the empire builders came to the fledgling, not quite yet, Los Estados Unidos, the obvious thing was to take out all the people that weren't cooperating. ban their religious practices, ban their schooling, and force them into, you guessed it, the Catholic Church, and force them into, you guessed it, K through 12 indoctrination systems. That's Horace Mann. We got compulsory attendance laws, and you saw people fighting this from the Native American days a couple hundred years ago all the way up through the Amish in the 1970s. You had the Amish in the 1970s still fighting this whole thing. What was this one? I had this one pulled up. Let me see. Ah, heavens to Murgatroyd. Oh, well, I had it up there, and now it's gone. Anyway, so the Amish were doing this in the 1970s, still because their kids were getting kidnapped for not attending the public school system because they were going, hey, you know what? I don't think so. I'm not going to do this whole bull jive. So some of the obvious things: compulsory attendance, standardized curriculum. You don't get to choose in your state. You know, people think that they have states' rights. What a load of horse garbage. Standardized curriculum. And if you want to look at Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and her father, who just died mysteriously, right? We don't know why he died. We don't know why. All those deep state ties, all those pre-Epstein ties, and of course, owning one of those big publishing houses that primarily most all the education curriculum's coming from. Standardized curriculum, folks. Age-based grades and testing. So you went from, if you remember the Little House on the Prairie show, you had kind of this one-room schoolhouse. Everybody's there. You might have older kids and younger kids. Everybody's learning. Not anymore. You got everybody separated, segregated, and otherwise codified, standardized, and put into age brackets. Factory-like structure? Well, of course it's a factory-like structure. That's what it's all about. That's what Horace Mann was wanting to implement. He wanted well-trained slaves that were sheep-like pupils that were just smart enough to pull the levers and the cogs in the machine. That's all it was about, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That's all it was about. State controlled, yeah, I think we already got that down. State controlled. If you want to pretend that the states are somehow like subordinate pimps to the big pimps at the Fed, you're a fool. But if you want to pretend that, sure. It's all about pimps and hoes, babe. It's pimps and hoes. If you don't play the game, you ain't getting that pimp money, and you might get a pimp slap. So that's who's been imbuing you since the mid-1800s with your education. That's why everybody's so fouled up and has no real knowledge of anything. No real knowledge of jack, folks. You probably can't even see this, but I put this on our main image there. It's got the Statue of Liberty in the back. And people think, it's Lady Liberty and justice for all. Yeah, that's horse manure again. Yeah, we got it from France. It's a statue of Lucifer. It's a tranny. And it's shackled down there with a broken chain there at the bottom. It's Lucifer, folks. It ain't Lady Liberty anymore, and I am the gingerbread man. It's lies. It's all lies, folks. The history you got taught was bull jive. You want to know who writes the history? The winners of the wars. That's why you've got this great awakening now of people that are figuring out that World War II was not as it was portrayed. That old 108 song, I am not as you portray me. History is not what you thought it was, folks. It's not. So they lied to you about Lady Liberty, right? They lied to you about World War II. Anyone want me just to rattle off the other obvious lies of the Empire of Lies? I mean, we could start all the way back with Columbus wasn't the first guy here. There was a lot of Vikings here before him. Just obvious prima facie once again. Columbus might have been d'Italia, but he was bankrolled by, do you know who? Do I have to say the J word too? I don't think so. You can figure it out. So it was really a bankroll job. Civil War, bankroll job. All the way back to Napoleon, bankroll job. Let's roll through some of the obvious. Spanish-American War, false flag. World War I, false flag. So we've got the sinking of the Maine, the sinking of the Lusitania. False flag, false flag. Everybody in the audience, you want to just sing false flag when I run these down? You can if you want to. False flag, false flag. Sinking of the Maine, false flag. Sinking of the Lusitania, false flag. Oh, you want to go back to Civil War, Fort Sumter? False flag. This is fun, isn't it? World War II, Pearl Harbor is a false flag. We just sort of wasted some years and many lives in Korea fighting communism. But it really was not predicated on a false flag. So although it was bull jive, we shouldn't have been there. It was kind of like how we shouldn't have been in the Middle East for weapons of mass destruction. And we sure as bleep shouldn't have spent even an hour in Venezuela. But I can't say that the Korean War was a false flag. It was stupid and non-necessary, but not a false flag. Vietnam, you want to go Gulf of Tonkin and say it with me, class, otra vez. False flag? Exactly. And then you've got our diddling and dawdling in the Middle East. OPEC. Oh, my gracious goodness, OPEC. We got Jimmy Carter dropping the ball. We got Al-Qaeda, also known as the CIA group, Al-Qaeda. Exactly. It was us. We created Al-Qaeda. We funded and trained Al-Qaeda. We caused the whole thing. We are Al-Qaeda, folks. We are Al-Qaeda. Gracious, goodness sakes alive. What else you want to go through that's just complete BS? The hippie movement. You can also say false flag on that one. It was all contrived. We covered this on the last episode. Dark Secrets Inside the Canyon. That lovely book. But that's just one of the operations. We got COINTELPRO. We got Operation Chaos. We got Timothy Leary quite literally distributing narcotics throughout the United States on college campuses. Electric Kool-Aid acid test. If it ain't a false flag, it'll do till it gets there. It's drug distribution. Did you miss this? Iran-Contra, drug distribution. Barry Seal, George Bush, Bill Clinton, Mena, Arkansas. Did you miss any of this? And now we have the audacity to allegedly invade a foreign country, kidnap its leader under the guise, auspice, and BS false flag of, we're doing it for the drugs. It goes right up there with, we're doing it for the children. It's lies, folks. It's all lies. Iran-Contra, Ronald Reagan, after they tried to kill him and gave him cold blood and fried his brain, he's up there going, I don't know anything about this. He didn't know anything about it, for Pete's sakes, most likely. He was gorked out like a early front runner to Biden during that last four. It was George Bush running point on that escapade. It was former CIA director George Bush. It was the guy who just happened to be there when JFK was killed, George Bush. It was the deep state operative, George Bush. It was the let me go and buy some water rights and reserves in South America, George Bush. It was the probably married to a man, George Bush. Empire of lies, folks. Lies. What else we got? You want to go through some assassinations? We could go all the way back to Garfield if you want to, but I'll just cover the ones in the last 70 years. We could make a song out of it if you want to. JFK, RFK, MLK2, Malcolm X, John Lennon, we're coming for you. Yeah. That's just the facts, Jack. They couldn't get the job done with Reagan. By the way, Bush was forced on the ticket. Reagan didn't even want him on the ticket. And I'm not suggesting Reagan was a good guy with this vaccine legislation that makes all vaccine industries just free as a bird to do whatever they want and kill you. That's okay. So it's all been a load of baloney. bill and sale of lies. An empire of lies. And I'm not the first one that said this, so please don't think it's just me. I'm like some demigod of virtue. I'm not. Let's run through some of the highlight reels of people that are still alive. I like this guy, Brett Pike. I've never talked to him. I bought some of his products, and I like what he says. Brett Pike, Cubs to Bears, classicallearner.com. He's been exposing the education system for a long time. So shout out to Brett Pike. He's still alive and well. Alex Newman, another great exposer of the indoctrination system. He's been on my show twice. So if you want to listen to some early Alex Newman from about 4 years ago, find it. I might show it on this show. It's just like an off day one day or something. But yeah, Alex Newman exposing all this bull jive for a long time. You got in my humble opinion, great John Taylor Gatto from the early 90s exposing all this mess. I mean, accolades out the yin yang as far as education goes. Dumbing Us Down, one of his major books, Weapons of Mass Instruction, Underground History of American Education. That's the deal, folks. It's an empire of lies. So everything you get taught is just to make you dumber. What have we got? The deliberate dumbing down of America. And I've mentioned her quite often on the show. Charlotte Iserby. Deliberate dumbing down of America. But it's all kind of rooted in Horace Mann, who went to Europe, got trained on this Franco-Prussian model, brought this crap back to the United States. That's why it's all this indoctrination of jive, turkey mess. That's why it's on a bell system. That's why the word kindergarten exists. It means child garden. It's a German word. That's where this all comes from. Following bells around, walking in line like a bunch of lemmings. So it shouldn't surprise you that people are morons. It shouldn't surprise you that the COVID hoax went off without a hitch. That people were wandering around grocery stores following lines like flowers for Algernon with slave shackles on their face, shunning people who actually had the intellectual temerity to say this is BS. That shouldn't surprise you at all. Because our entire system is an empire of lies. Here's another one. I used to actually think this was a good idea, but the more I look at it, I just don't think it is. I just don't. I don't think it is. Saying the pledge every day. You come into school and you all sit upright and you look at the flag longingly and get goosebumps and say, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Yeah, why? Folks, I ain't buying none of it anymore. It's more indoctrination. You're indoctrinating people to believe more lies. And I'm not saying America's the worst country. I'm not saying we're horrible and everybody's a bunch of whatever, the bull job horse manure that is promulgated, propagated, and otherwise shoved up your rear by the communist trash disguised as the left. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is you have to at least see what's going on. You have to admit that you're getting lied to. And I don't think you should blindly follow with any sort of allegiance anything. From me to the man in the moon, folks. Don't blindly follow anything. I'm not trying to get on a Reagan jag here, but he did say some smart stuff occasionally. Trust but verify. You got to trust but verify. Nobody verifies butt kiss anymore. As I've said on this show ad nauseum, I used to see a sticker quite often as a youngster. It said, question authority. I don't see that sticker at all anymore, folks, because nobody questions anything. Nobody questions anything. And the most revolting part of this whole thing is that there's no spine, there's no temerity, there's no huevos of people actually saying, I'm not doing this anymore. I mean, you see MTG coming out like, we should have a big tax revolt. Okay. That would probably make sense if it wasn't coming from somebody in the system. Maybe. I'm not saying she's bad or good either. I'm saying I ain't trusting none of it. Call me black pill, baby. Come on, Danny. Come on with it. I'm not cool and tough like you. I don't know my Barney Fife moves, so you're probably going to take me out easily. I don't play make-believe. I don't pretend, I'm straight up with it. But the most revolting thing is that people just go along with this now and accept the despotism. And I'm a huge fan of history. I'm a huge fan of things old. And I've said this many times. I love old Art Bell. And I'm going to have a show transition pretty soon that I hope everybody's going to understand and appreciate. But if you don't listen to it. It doesn't hurt my feelings. But the late, great Art Bell, in my humble opinion, the king of late night, there was none greater. Art Bell, and I've been listening to this show, like old episodes of it, this one coming out in 1996, and it's really informative because it gives you a glimpse into the past, and it's not like expunged or sanitized for your protection. It's like this is what the thought process was in the past. And it's the show from 1996. I've listened to several of them in the dossier, if you will. But he's just covering the news. He's having people call in and say, okay, I think X, Y, and Z about what's going on here, there, and everywhere. But one of the things that is discussed in the 1996 lead up to that presidential election, you had Slick Willie, a.k.a. Bill Clinton, the rapist, and you had his supposed adversaries, if you will, Bob Dole and Ross Perot. And Ross Perot would have been the best. Please, I wish the late, great Ross Perot were still around, because he would probably say, the sucking sound is what you're going to see with NAFTA and GATT, and that's exactly what you saw. But the funny, not so funny, is one of the things Art Bell was discussing is that there's just no interest in this election. People just don't give a bleep. And you had a lot of people calling in, and keep in mind, this is 1996. A lot of people were calling in and saying, people just don't feel like there's any real difference between Dole and Clinton. Truth be told, there wasn't. And another thing is that kept coming up from the callers, people were feeling disenfranchised, getting the feeling that this might be a big charade, that they don't have a voice, like they're just voting just for something to do. This that old Pavlovian, ooh, the dog salivates when the treats are shown. Ooh, he hits this bell and a treat falls. That kind of stupidity, that sort of imbecilic, moronic stupidness that people all get taught. K through 12 indoctrination, college, university, weapons. You've got to vote. It's your obligation. You can make a difference. Well, that's not true, folks. It's lies. It's lies. It's right up there with the lies of, you can be an astronaut. Well, probably not. But I guess if you somehow are, then we know that you're full of prunes too. Just like all the people that allegedly died in the Challenger that are still alive and well. They're not even changing their names. They're not even doing cosmetic surgery to make them look different. It's like, here's the same people. Here they are now. Here they are then. Here they are now. We've all seen the bull job, like we're on the space station. Shows one thing floating, shows two other things just sitting there on the table. At this point, it's got to be a humiliation ritual because they're not even attempting to obfuscate, hide, or otherwise occult what's going on. They're not even attempting to hide it anymore. That's how stupid they think the American people are. They think the American people are so dumb, they're like, forget about it. We'll just show this astronaut on a space station doing flips, and we'll show like a bottle of water just sitting on a table behind him. That's how dumb they think you are. But back to the bull job you get taught in school, like, you've got to vote and these elections matter. Maybe you can be a president. Maybe you can be an astronaut. It's like the most trivial idiocy. I mean, I've talked on this, and I've made fun of this in the last few shows. It's like the write your congressman. Oh, you can write your congressman. Have you written your congressman about all these things you're upset about? Why would anyone do that? But this is kind of like the yesteryear, the boomer generation, and even it bled into the Gen Xers a little bit. But I think we were just too, like, screw everybody to care and to fall for the lies. But there's a little vestige of that still exists where it's like, write your congressman. If you have problems, they can help you. They represent you. I mean, I just don't know who buys this anymore. But looking back at that 1996 Coast to Coast AM with the late, great Art Bell was really intriguing because it really kind of set the table for what we see today. And it even resurrected a lot of ghosts that I just didn't even remember. They had the Montana Freeman standoff was going on, and they'd already had the Ruby Ridge and the Waco BS go on prior to that. And, it was this big hullabaloo. Like, what are we going to do about these people that are they're not following the rules? Like, they didn't have enough fluoride. They must not have gone to all 12 years of their K through 12 indoctrination. They have the audacity to resist their pimps. And it's so funny, but the slaves clamor for slavery. It's like the house slaves were there to keep in line the people that were not house slaves. And if you look back at the Greeks and the Romans, like this same sort of system was in place then, and this same sort of system was brought to America and transposed into the plantation culture, mostly like the sugarcane culture in the Caribbean and the rice plantations, and then eventually cotton and so forth in the South. But it was the same dichotomy, and they played the same psychological games because you would have some slaves that were given a little bit more status, aka the house slaves, typically females, and they were tasked to oversee the rest of the slaves. So they would tell on the other slaves, they would get them in trouble, they would oversee some of the other slaves, they would get the subordinate slaves to like buy into the bull jive of the plantation and of the slave master. So you see that same sort of thing like imprinted today. But I saw that while I was listening to the 1996 Art Bell because they had a lot of people call in and it was almost split, which I was surprised because we still had a little bit of balls then. But there was a lot of people going like, oh, these guys are bums. They were writing bad checks and they were doing liens without credit. And like, to his credit, Art Bell was even going like, you mean like the banks? You mean like the Federal Reserve? You mean like that? But you had people going, we got to get them. We need to send people in there. Just kill, And then you had sort of the odd flip of the coin and the twist where you had people going, this is bull butter. This is illegitimate. This is no different than the Federal Reserve. This is no different than the government stealing from people with asset forfeiture seizure. This is no different. The difference is the people that were at the Freeman standoff didn't have a military behind them. So therein lies the problem and the difference. It's always who's got the most firepower, who's got the guns, folks. So many songs I could reference the great 999 with the song Lie, 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 It's a Lie. And of course, the great New York hardcore, Sick of It All, with the refrain of It's All Just Lies. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's all just lies, whether or not you want to admit it or not. What sits before you is an empire of lies. And you've got the slave class that will perpetually defend it. These were the people that were in line for COVID with the slave shackle on that was shrieking and pointing like Invasion of the Body Snatchers when they saw one that could see. He's not wearing his slave shackle. Get him out of the store. They're daring to do something the government does without a military. Arrest them. They're questioning the answers. They must be blackpilled. Dan Bongino will get you. They're saying naughty words about our greatest ally. Pam Bondi will get you. Empire of lies, folks. Empire of flipping lies. I was going to pull this video up. I just didn't. It was just a little too long for me, and it was nauseating. But it was Andrew Tate, the same guy who just suffered the humiliation ritual a couple of weekends ago with Jake Paul, another humiliation ritual. But anyway, Andrew Tate went on some big tirade and went on and on about how that's what we're supposed to do. Of course, we're going to take over Israel. We need to take over Israel. We need to take over Greenland. We need to take over Mexico. We need to take over Cuba. You know, it's like, what? First and foremost, Andrew Tate's not an American. At least last I checked. Maybe he's got dual citizenship. Maybe he's going to run for office and kiss the wall. I don't know. I believe he's Muslim, last I heard. But anyway, he's the same guy that was like running girls. He was doing real pimp work. And then somehow became king of the manosphere. Dun, 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 dun. Because when a hero is needed, one will be provided for you. Dun, 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 dun. Albert Pike, morals and dogma. That's right, folks. It ain't no different, is it? It ain't no thing. And old Nick Fuentes was quick to say, oh, Andrew Tate's the GOAT, man. And they both went on to deride the attributes of marriage. Why would anyone be married? Oh, my. Well, I don't know. Probably because they don't want to be in this abyss of trannies and AI and catfish and chicks that are dudes and dudes that are chicks and things that are not so sure. I don't want any part of this, man. I just don't. More of your empire of lies. Because everybody in the mainstream media has now been relegated by everybody in the alternative media. And isn't it funny how there's this real push? It's like first they had, I guess you would have the incarnation of Alex Jones and Cernovich and Fuentes and Tate and like that sort of era of the alternative media. And now you're seeing a greater emphasis being pushed, I would say, in the alternative media by all these people that are veterans. Oh, everybody's a veteran, and they just all happen to be special forces and SEALs, and they all happen to look the same and act the same, and by and large be towing the same talking points. I'm not saying it's anything, but I'm just saying, to quote the great Arsenio Hall, things that make you go, Es muy extraña clase, muy extraña. Pero por qué? Why is it strange, John? Well, it's strange because, you know, it's not like this hasn't been done before. You know, it's not like winning hearts and minds is somehow an obfuscated tactic. It's not like this isn't taught in military colleges. It's not like this isn't being taught in the Special Forces schools. It's not like this hasn't been taught in, was it Fort Huachuca? Come on. It's not like this isn't taught at the Army Special Warfare's College. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence. I'm sure there's no connections here. Just like there's no connections between propaganda and Edward Bernays and his cousin Sigmund Freud. There's no connections to any of that. There's no reason that bacon and eggs is touted as the staple of breakfast. There's no connection that the food pyramid is definitely just, Rockefeller-funded medicine. There's no connection between smoking and torches of freedom. There's no connection as to why all the sitcoms look the same and all seem to be pushing the same agenda and all the sports stars seem to say the same things and all your favorite actors and actresses seem to be towing the same line. There's no connection at all, John. Why would you ever think that, buddy? What are you trying to say? You trying to say that we're all just being sold an empire of lies? My goodness, I think you've got it. You can't do everything, but you can do something. Please get out there, do your part, make a difference, and I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.
Thank you.